Hi, guys. So we're going to learn about just what IPv6 addresses are and why IPv6 is actually preferred. So why and what is IPv6 address? All right. So first, what is an IPv6? Well, I'll tell you, due to the rapid expansion of the internet since the, early 90s, the increase in the number of added nodes and the increase in diversity, Internet Protocol version 4, or what's known as IPv4, is going to be insufficient for addressing the devices to be connected to the internet. So a new addressing has to be deployed. Now, it has been emphasized that this transition to this next system is going to be mandatory. So studies within this scope actually started under the leadership of IETF, which is the Internet Engineering Task Force. I know, they're a group of superheroes. However, they decided to name the new protocol IPNG. Well, it's just Internet Protocol Next Generation, or Internet Protocol version 6, or IPv6. So the standards of the new Internet Protocol are defined in the particular document if you want to look it up. It's called RFC 2460, and it was published at the end of 1998. So to fill you in case you don't want to go and get that document, the 32-bit address structure of IPv4 theoretically offers more than 4 billion, that's due to the 32nd, or 4,294,967,296 usable addresses. However, what they found out in practice, a number of effective addresses never reaches this number due to insufficient address assignment mechanisms. In fact, most of the IPv4 address range is currently in use, and the remaining addresses are expected to be, exhausted pretty soon. So the IPv4 address range is divided into 256 8-size primary allocation ranges. The IANA, or Internet Assigned Numbers Authority. This is the authority responsible for the distribution coordination of IP addresses in the entire world, has assigned the last 5 primary allocation ranges to regional IP address distribution authorities in Europe, North America, Latin America, Africa, and Asia on February 3rd, wait for it, 2011. Yeah, so that was kind of a long time ago already. Well, it's still expected that at least one regional distribution authority is going to run out of IPv4 addresses by September of 2011. So check it out. We're in 2021 as of this recording. So you got to know IPv6 because it's got a 128-bit structure in its address. So theoretically, it offers more than, wait for it, 340 trillion. That's 2 to the 128th of individual internet addresses. So yeah, that's a large enough address range to, keep us going for a little while longer anyway. However, it does point out there are disadvantages of IPv4. So the RFC 791 document published on IPv4 back in 1981, and yeah, you can go look it up if you want, it's not really changed much. Its easy implementation and interoperability with other protocols, it still makes IPv4 very popular. It's also played a major role in the spread of the internet. So, the use of IPv4 today imposes some restrictions. Some of the needs emerging today could not be actually foreseen way back when they were designing IPv4. Well, I'll tell you, some of the particular pitfalls of IPv4 are due to the ever-increasing growth of the internet and the increase in number of devices connected to the internet. IPv4 address space remains insufficient, and it's just not going to get any better. I mean, we know that already, right? I mean, unless you've been snoring through that first few minutes. But I'll tell you this, there was a Band-Aid put on the problem. Yeah, many institutions have chosen to use address converter mechanisms such as network address translation, or NAT. So IPv4, which cannot provide end-to-end addressing, fell short of meeting the needs due to the increase in the variety of services offered over the Internet and the operational difficulties experienced in delivering some services to users behind NAT. That definitely sounds like a problem that was actually made by the Band-Aid. But now, the IPv4 address space didn't allow for hierarchical addressing, and that has caused routing tables of router devices to grow. So in recent years, the need for IP-level security has increased in order to protect confidentiality, integrity of data in the whole Internet environment, right? So security infrastructure can be provided just by using the IPsec standard, but that was developed for IPv6. It was, of course, later adapted for IPv4, but come on. Especially when you're working on IPv4 networks using NAT, you can imagine that the use of that standard causes more problems than perhaps it's even worth. Here's another pitfall. IPv4 address configuration can be done statically or by using Dynamic Host Configuration Protocol. You've heard of DHCP. However, due to the increasing need for IP addresses, there was a need to develop a new automatic configuration method. So, in real-time data transfer, a certain quality of service can be provided using the TOS field, or type of service, in the IPv4 packet header. However, the use of the TOS field is limited and creates many more problems when you're trying to encrypt transfers. Oh boy, so what are we going to do? Well, there are some advantages of IPv6. In fact, with IPv6, many innovations have been introduced to meet the changing needs of today's networks, while preserving the strengths of IPv4. So as the network in the Internet, which is really just a big old network, covers more and more users every day, router traffic and the number of packets to be forwarded have increased exponentially. So for this reason, data processing speed has gained importance today. In other words, it's of great importance that data packets be routed correctly and quickly at the points where routing or switching is made. Now, the new features of IPv6, these aim to eliminate the problems experienced in IPv4 with the widespread use of the Internet and increases in service diversity. So, I'll list out a few of them. We can extend the address space. So one of the most important features of IPv6 is that it offers a larger address space than IPv4 with an address length of 128 bits. Now, don't panic as you think back to the calculating by hand in your piece of paper. I just want to tell you that this large address space in IPv6 will allow hierarchical addressing, thereby reducing the size of routing tables. Now, currently, a very small percentage of IPv6 address range is reserved for, well, definition and allocation. So this way, there are going to be enough addresses available for future use. But another advantage offered by the wide address range is end-to-end addressing. So the need for address converter mechanisms, such as NAT, which brings many operational difficulties in use cases, is eliminated by using IPv6. Now, there are new security features as well. IPv6 also has many advantages when it comes to security. First of all, IP security, or Internet Protocol Security. It's also known as IPsec. That is supported and integrated in IPv6. So with this integration, services are provided to operate more smoothly and effectively. Another advantage of IPv6 in terms of security is that authorization and encryption can be made with additional headers defined for security. In addition, there are new features in IPv6 that ensure security integrity, such as transferring packets at intermediate nodes without fragmentation and facilitating the tracking of packets on the network with that new header structure. Speaking of which, it's a simplified header structure. So IPv6 packets have a new fixed-length header structure, and that allows them to be processed faster by routers. Now, some unnecessary fields in the IPv4 header have been omitted, while others have been moved to the extension headers for optional use. And we get advanced quality of service features. So Internet Protocol, by nature, handles all different applications indiscriminately with a best effort approach, right? And as you might imagine, this can cause problems for traffic that is sensitive to parameters such as end-to-end delay or packet losses. So to overcome these problems, different quality of service or QoS techniques are used and needed in IPv4. New fields in the IPv6 header allow traffic to be better identified and prioritized accordingly. Now, since this prioritization is done according to the information in the packet header, the fact that the content of the packet is encrypted doesn't affect prioritization. I don't know if you think that's a big deal, but yes, it is. Anyway, automatic address configuration. All right, so that might intrigue you. Automatic address configuration is one of the most important innovations brought about by IPv6. So IPv6 allows networked interfaces to acquire addresses without an address assignment server on the network. So the basis of this feature is that the routers in the network announce the required address prefix, and then the clients will create their own addresses by adding a 64-bit value right to the block. So addresses created in this way must be duplicate address detection mechanism before being used. And that just means that nodes will be able to use the address that they believe is not used by the others. Now we get to roamability. Yeah, roamability is the ability of a client to connect from different networks with a real home address. Now, roamability support in IPv4 actually exists, but it is problematic. But it works fine in IPv6. What about extensibility? Yeah, that's a word that gets thrown around a lot these days. The optional extension headers section, which is outside the mandatory header field in IPv6, can be used for new features that we don't even know about yet because they're going to be needed in the future. Unless you're looking at this from the future, in which case I've got a couple of questions for you, so give us a shout out, okay? Now, what about new protocol for interaction with neighboring nodes? Yeah, IPv6 networks use a new protocol, Neighbor Discovery Protocol, and that actually manages the interaction of neighboring nodes on the same link. So this protocol uses Control Message Protocol for IPv6 or ICMPv6 messages. So these messages replace the Address Resolution Protocol, or ARP. So ICMP version 4, Router Discovery, and ICMP v4 Redirect, these are the messages that are found in IPv4. ICMP v6 is also used to report errors and other basic conditions that occur during your routing and your distribution of IP packets. So hurry up already. Why are we all using IPv6? Well, please contact your ISP and ask them. Thank you. All right. Anyway, that's all you get for this lesson. We learned what IPv6 is and some of the disadvantages of IPv4, but plenty of advantages of IPv6. All right. So I'm actually serious about that, contacting your ISP. When do we get IPv6? All right. I'll see you in the next lesson.